to another episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your animatronic host, Dom, and in this episode we are going to take a look at the 2023 supernatural horror film that's based on the hit 2014 point-and-click survival horror game and media series Five Nights at Freddy's. This is the first newer film I've had to review. That was mainly just out of support for the writers and actors strikes, to be in solidarity with them. I didn't want to, scab. And I know that they had kind of put out a whole thing about, please don't review anything that was coming out that was new. And so for quite a while there, I was just reviewing things that were older, that were from earlier in the year, or I even did one that was like a redo. So now we're getting back into things. We can start reviewing things again now that that's all been, the writers has been completely done. I know the actors are still working on their thing, but the strike is over for now. I think it's on like a pause or something, whatever, for now. But we can get back to reviewing newer things. So I decided, why not tackle something was a bigger deal, more so that the controversy of it having taken so long to come out. Just to get through the pre-production. And then also something where the fans are kind of divided about, I know especially my nephew who he's really into it. He doesn't really like it because the lore's not in line with everything with the movie, but we'll get into that later. So, power on your console, start up your save file, and let's get into Five Nights at Freddy's. Before jumping into production of the film, I wanted to get into the game series that got us to this point of review. Scott Cawthon is a video game developer and writer who began his career developing Christian and family games to little success. Due to failures from his games underperforming, Cawthon suffered a crisis of faith. After his construction and management game, Chipper & Sons Lumber Co. received negative reviews, Cawthon lost interest in game development until he regained it following a spiritual experience. The experience left Cawthon less inclined towards making Christian games, and he began production of the secular Five Nights at Freddy's. Cawthon came up with the idea for, and I'm going to switch between Five Nights at Freddy's and FNAF, probably just going forward, so you'll hear both. For FNAF, due to criticism from Chipper & Sons Lumber Co., with many reviewers complaining that the characters looked and gave the feel of animatronic puppets, like those found at the height of popularity in Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time theaters. Taking that idea, Cawthon decided to make his next game a horror-focused experience. Players commented that the characters in the game were unintentionally unsettling and animatronic-like in appearance. Reviewer Jim Sterling called the game terrifying. Although initially discouraged by this poor reception, he was inspired to make something intentionally scary. The plot of the first video game, Five Nights at Freddy's, begins with Mike Schmidt, the player, listening to a voicemail from his unnamed predecessor at the start of his first shift. Similar messages play on the following nights, in which the employee tells Schmidt about the restaurant and its history. The security officer explains that the restaurant's four animatronic characters, Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, are allowed to become mobile at night due to their servo meters locking up if they are left off for too long. He warns Schmidt that if an animatronic encounters a human after hours, it will mistake them for an animatronic endoskeleton, and it will stuff the human into a spare mechanical suit, killing the person in the process. The players indirectly told about disturbing events in the restaurant's history. A voice message mentions the Bite of 87, an incident in which is implied to have led to the loss of a person's frontal lobe and forced animatronic mobility during the day to be prohibited. Newspaper clippings viewable through the camera feeds reveal that a man reportedly lured 5 children into a back room on site and killed them. Although the suspect was arrested, the children's bodies were never found. The restaurant later received complaints that the animatronics began to emit foul odors, while blood and mucus leaked from their eyes and mouths. On the 4th night, the voicemail implies that Schmidt's predecessor was killed by an animatronic while recording the message. The final message on the 5th night only consists of garbled sounds. Schmidt receives paychecks after the 5th and 6th nights. If the player reloads their game after completing the 6th night, they are given access to a 7th custom night, where they can manipulate the AI difficulty of the animatronics. Upon finishing the 7th night, Schmidt is fired. The game garnered positive reviews, with some calling it a brilliant horror experience. Gaining a large following due to Let's Play videos on YouTube with influencers such as Markiplier and PewDiePie featuring the game on their channels. Expanding the media franchise with a sequel in 2015, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and eventually a novel, FNAF, The Silver Eyes. In 2017, Blumhouse acquired the rights to adapt the game into a film. In April 2015, Warner Bros. Pictures announced it had acquired the film rights to the Five Nights at Freddy's video game franchise, with Roy Lee, David Katzenberg, and Seth Grahame-Smith set to produce the adaptation. Grahame-Smith stated that they would collaborate with franchise creator Scott Cawthon, who co-wrote the books in collaboration with the ghostwriting firm Kevin Anderson and Associates, to quote-unquote make an insane, terrifying, and weirdly adorable movie. In July 2015, Gil Kanan signed to direct the film from a screenplay co-written with Tyler Burton Smith. And then later in 2017, Cawthon announced that Blumhouse Productions as the film's new production company after Warner Bros. Pictures put the project in turnaround. And so then in May 2017, producer Jason Blum said that he was excited and working closely with Cawthon on the film. And in June of that same year, Keenan said he was no longer directing the film. Fast forward to February of 2018, Chris Columbus was announced as Keenan's replacement as director and writer, besides producing the film alongside Blum and Cawthon. Then, in August of 2018, Cawthon revealed that the first draft of the film script, which he wrote with co-author of the Five Nights at Freddy's novel trilogy, Kira Bree Risley, was completed, and it would involve the events of the series' first game. That same month, Blum wrote on Twitter that the film was aiming for a 2020 release. Then, in November, Cawthon announced that he scrapped the script, despite being liked by Columbus and Blum, as he had a different idea for the story, one that he liked better. It contributed to a further delay to the film, for which Cawthon took full responsibility. And then in June of 2020, during an interview with Fandom, Blum was asked about the progress of the film and said, "It's super active, so I really feel like that we have a really good shot at seeing a Five Nights at Freddy movie. I feel like it's really moving forward. It's not stalled or anything else. It's moving forward rapidly. I don't want to put a timeline on it, but soon we'll get a movie. I feel really confident about that." And then September 2021, Blum revealed that Columbus was no longer involved in the project, which was still in active development. And then in August of 2022, Blum announced that Jim Henson's Creature Shop would be working on the animatronic characters for the film. And then in October, Emma Tammy was announced as Columbus's replacement as director, in addition to co-writing the screenplay alongside Cawthon and Seth Cuddeback. Principal photography was initially set to begin March of 2021. However, due to script issues and all the delays that they had, filming began February 1st, 2023 in New Orleans under the working title Bad Cupcake. Had an estimated budget of $25 million, and that's where we get Five Nights at Freddy's, the film. So let's go and take a look at that.
Hi, this is Mike. I was just calling to see if that job that you offered was still available.
Yes. The security guard.
I will take anything.
This place was huge in the 80s with the kids. They shut it down years ago. The owner's just not ready to let it go yet.
I will work and you will sleep.
I understand.
Give me your hand.
All you have to do is keep your eyes on the monitor.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's, where fantasy and fun come to life.
Okay.
You must be new security guard.
Can I help you, officer?
Have you met them yet?
Met who?
Them. In the 80s, kids went missing. The police searched Freddy's top to bottom.
Hello?
They never found them. That's why the place shut down.
There are ghost children possessing giant robots. Thanks for the heads up.
Technically, they're animatronics.
What do they want?
They want to make her like them.
Abby! Tell me how to stop them.
It's too late.
Robbie, go!
Where to? Why do I always get the weirdos?
At the once successful, now run down Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which used to be a center for family entertainment, the night security guard, played by Ryan Renke, attempts to flee from the place, but is captured and strapped to a torture device, which kills him. Later, mall security guard Mike Schmidt, played by Josh Hutcherson, is fired after he assaulted a negligent father whom he mistook for a kidnapper. Mike's career counselor, Steve Raglan, played by Matthew Lillard, offers him a job as a night guard at Freddy's. Though initially reluctant, Mike accepts after social services threaten to take custody of the younger sister, Abby, who's played by Piper Rubio, and pass her to their estranged aunt, Jane, who desires the custody's monthly payments. Aunt Jane is played by Mary Stuart Masterson. On his first night watching the pizzeria, Mike falls asleep and dreams about the day his little brother, Garrett, who's played by Lucas Grant, was kidnapped. In his dream, Mike meets 5 children who also witness the crime, but flee when he approaches them. The children are played by Liam Hendricks, Asher Colton Spence, David Houston Dottie, Jophiel Love, and Grant Feely, respectively. The following day, Jane hires a gang of vandals, which includes Abby's babysitter, Max, and is led by Max's brother, Jeff, along with his friends, Hank and Carl. They are played by Kat Connor Sterling, David Lind, Christian Stokes, and Joseph Polquin, respectively. The hired goons are to vandalize the restaurant in order to get Mike fired and hasten Jane's custody of Abby. At Mike's shift that night, he meets police officer Vanessa Shelley, played by Elizabeth Lyle, who explains that after 5 children were murdered at Freddy's, The place has been closed since the 1980s. The suspect and the victim's bodies were never found. Once Mike's shift ends and he leaves, the vandals break in, but the restaurant's animatronic mascots, Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Mr. Cupcake, come alive and kill the vandals one by one. Max's disappearance forces Mike to bring Abby along on his next shift, in which the animatronics befriend Abby, and Mike discovers that the animatronics are possessed by the amnesiac ghosts of the missing children, whose leader constantly mentions a yellow rabbit. On the fourth night, Abby is accidentally injured, in which she, Mike, and Vanessa are bonding with the animatronics. The next morning, Mike gets Jane to babysit a frustrated Abby as he goes back to Freddy's and takes some sleeping pills. The children appear in his dream again and tell him that he can stay with Garrett forever in exchange for Abby. Mike initially accepts, but when he changes his mind, he is attacked by Foxy and wakes up strapped to the torture device. He escapes by removing pins that his predecessor had loosened. Meanwhile, a damaged yellow Freddy animatronic, possessed by the leader of the children, kills Jane and takes Abby back to the restaurant. Vanessa treats Mike's injuries and reveals that she is the daughter of William Afton, the serial killer who kidnapped and murdered the 5 children and Garrett. He hid their bodies in the animatronics, knowing the police would never search those, and their souls are under his control. Realizing the animatronics plan to kill Abby and have her join them, Mike rushes to the restaurant. The animatronics are defeated, but reactivated by Steve, who arrives wearing the yellow rabbit suit, revealing himself to be William Afton. Knowing the animatronics like drawings, Abby draws a picture of William murdering the children in order to free them from his influence and make them realize the truth. Vanessa attempts to stop her father, but he stabs her. The animatronics see Abby's drawing. They turn on William. Mr. Cupcake bites off part of William's suit, triggering its internal spring lock mechanisms, which fatally wound him. As they drag him away, Mike and Abby carry Vanessa out of the restaurant, who later falls into a coma and is hospitalized. Shortly after, Mike and Abby reconcile and resume their normal lives. Okay, so let's get into some trivia on the film. Let's start off with this one. Unlike most studios using CGI for bringing the creatures to life, which we see nowadays with everything from like Godzilla to Marvel to you name it, Jim Henson's Creature Shop was responsible for the creation of the Fazbear animatronics. The animatronic characters were performed by puppeteers from Jim Henson's Creature Shop. For shots where the characters weren't moving, the puppeteers would control both the head and body movements. In rare instances where a character would walk or dance, a stunt performer would don the costume while the puppeteers controlled the head remotely. And honestly, at first I thought it was all CGI. I didn't realize this until later, and I was like, saw them interacting, and then like I saw a TikTok where it showed like them interacting with the animatronics on set, and I was like, what? I thought it was like a promo or something. I mean, it was obviously it was like for the movie, but honestly, I thought it was like them just saying like look at how like we're interacting with them, but no, they're really there. They were physical things, and I love that. I think it makes it like way better. They nailed them spot on. Like they look like they were ripped from the game. They look so good. It works so much better too that they're like real things there. Like that's one thing. Some issues with CGI are that like actors don't actually get like when you don't have practical effects like that, where you don't have like an actual thing to interact with. Sometimes it can make it a little clunky. It can be harder for actors. And I think bringing on Jim Henson to do this, the Creature Shop, is probably the best thing that they could ever do. And people need to do this more. I think because it reminds me of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like the original, the first one, and like the second one too, but mainly that original one that came out in like 1990, I believe. But the suits, I mean, they made them look just like if you were to bring them to life. Like, they did it spot on, and I think this is the one company to go to for bringing a lot of these to life that I think we really should do more often, because it really works out really well. Like, to me, that was probably the best part, is that these animatronics weren't just they weren't just, oh, let's just put the actors on a green screen, or we'll just throw up a tennis ball and, oh, you got to talk to it. They actually had something to interact with, and honestly, I love that. I love that they decided to go with practical effects for these animatronics. It's really a standout and makes me go, clap, clap, clap. Oh, congratulations. Oh, good job. I love it. I really loved it. So, YouTuber Mark Fishbach, also known as Markiplier, who helped popularize the Five Nights at Freddy's game with his multiple Let's Plays that he had on his channel, was contacted and was going to have a role in the film as a security guard that preceded Mike Schmidt, but unfortunately Markiplier turned it down due to conflicting schedules with his own upcoming film, Iron Lung, which is also based on a video game. Another popular Let's Player, YouTuber Corey Execution, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, appears as the cab driver towards the climax of the film, and again in the post mid-credit scene. Corey Execution's Let's Play videos on Five Nights at Freddy's also garnered millions of views, and they both were just very influential. And I mean, I think Markiplier is the one really who helped to get more and more people to. I mean, there was a lot of people doing Let's Plays during that time, but yeah, I think he really helped to like get people to start like seeing this game and being like, oh, we can really make not just like a quick like, oh, here's a good easy like million views, but like it's pretty good entertainment, because it's just like it's a bunch of the whole thing is just jump scares. The whole game is just about like jump scares and like this feeling of dread, because these things are getting closer and moving around, and it's it's just funny to see like people like give that reaction. I think that's also why like horror games, watching people play horror games, it's probably a lot of I think me and everyone else very entertaining, because what you're waiting for is to see their reaction of the people playing the game, and then like, oh, like, didn't see that coming, and then like the jump scare comes. And honestly, I mean, I'm not a huge Markiplier fan, but I mean, it would have been cool to have him in there. You kind of, and I'm glad though that they did reach out and be like, hey, we want you to play this role, because you are someone who helped to get this out there and helped to get it to be what it is. And then let's move on to the next point, which is that in another cameo, we see YouTubing gaming theorist Matthew Patrick as a waiter. Jason Blum watched his theory videos on the games in preparation for making the film. And yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of Matt Pat, especially in the past when he, like, not when he first started, but like, it was past like those early days, but like, as he started getting more and more steam. And yeah, I remember watching as many of the Five Nights, the FNAF videos, theory videos that I could watch, like anytime they pop up, like new ones. Because they were like, the lore, like, is kind of crazy. When you start getting into it, it's really, there's so much, like, different things. Like, there's a bite of 87, there's who was Purple Man, the purple guy, sorry. Like there's, like, the people who, like, looked into, like, finding, like, the mini games and stuff, and, like, who were the kids, and trying to piece together what happened. And there's a lot of videos out there. If you ever want to go and get yourself into a whole it's just a whole thing. My friend was talking to me about how when he watched it too, then he went and started getting into that, and he's just like, this is a deep well. And I'm like, yeah, it really is, because at certain points too, like, certain things are canon, certain things are not canon, certain things are partially canon, other things are like the book, so the Silver Eyes. I know some of that is canon, I think, but it does change up, like, who the original creator was and is, and what his partner was doing, and who's their kids, and just all this other stuff. There's a lot to get into, and I probably should just do like a whole part of like thing where I dig into that. I might do that later, but man, there's just so much to dig into for behind the lore and stuff. It would probably be its own video. Its own like review, or like part of like, I would probably do it like in the Oops All Scaries, like have that as a section, because there's just, like I said, there's a lot. So just before Jeff is killed, Foxy is shown to be standing at the far end of the hall, and then is suddenly upon him. This is obviously a reference to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, in which Foxy is seen often standing at the far end of the hall, and then jump scares the player by leaping upon them very suddenly. Furthermore, the sound he makes just before he kills Jeff is the same noise the animatronics make when performing a jump scare in Five Nights at Freddy's. And I mean, this isn't just like the first of like many little not cameos, Easter eggs. There we go. There's so many different like little Easter eggs here and there. There's like the balloon boy Easter egg, which keeps popping up. There's just things here and there, like also the animatronic Chica tries to stop Abby into a very similar to the Ella doll from the 2015 novel Five Nights at Freddy's: The Silver Eyes, and then that's written by Kira Breed Risley and Scott Cawthon. A bigger and now a Springlock suit. And there's just things here and there that are just like little Easter eggs that I was like, man, they got that like pretty good. I like that they added some of the stuff to give it like you know what I mean? Like this is what the fans really want. This is what they really wanted. Not, and I'll get to it when I get to my final thoughts. But there's just some things there that they wanted to see more, and I don't think what we got was enough. But like I said, I'll get to it. After Afton is attacked by the animatronics, he's left in the parts and service room, still inside the suit, twitching from the spring lock mechanism. The way he moves is very similar to the trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's 3, the first appearance of the character of William Afton / Springtrap, in which part of the plot of this movie is obviously based on. For any of the fans, sorry, it's not obvious. For any of the fans of the Five Nights at Freddy's, the FNAF series, the games, I remember watching a video about that where they finally like learned about William Afton and how he got into the spring trap and how it like basically it like I don't know if it malfunctioned or whatever, but yeah, it did that where it like caught him in it, and you just see him like twitching and bleeding and stuff. And that's another thing that I'm like, see, they got the essence of some things. Especially I loved like the opening credits, because they took what we saw from like I forgot what the name of the game is. There's like a game function that you can do in one of them, and it's like it makes it look like it's one of those classic NES, SNES games, or actually before that, probably like Atari. It looks like those like 8-bit games they used to play, and it kind of just breaks down like the story of like what happened, where he would take them to like places, the kids, and kill them, and then like you get things with like the puppet, and we haven't even they didn't even touch on the puppet, but I think that's what they're kind of going towards with some of it. Some of the other stuff, like with Abby, is I think it's meant to like be a callback to like certain things like the novel, but it's like, but if you haven't read the novel, you really wouldn't know that. But I think most people who are invested in that series, like hardcore, know about the novel. But I think the novel itself too is like kind of iffy if that's canon. But I see, it's just the whole lore thing is the whole thing by itself. And like I said, let's just move on. So, Five Nights at Freddy's grossed $80 million domestically in its opening weekend, more than any other Blumhouse film, which makes me very sad because it surpassed Halloween from 2018, and that only had $76 million. It's also the second biggest opening weekend gross for any film based on a video game, after Super Mario Bros. Movie, which was earlier this year. This year, like, it feels like it's gone by really fast, not really slowly. So I forgot Mario Brothers came out this year, and that grossed $146 million, and FNAF has gone on to surpass Split as the highest grossing Blumhouse film worldwide, which is kind of crazy when you think about that this film would be the one that would just blow everything away. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. It had a built-in audience already and fans coming into the series, and they've been waiting for it for years. So I guess that makes sense because everyone's been waiting to see it. But as of the 1st of December, it's grossed $136.6 million in the United States and Canada, and then 163 in other territories, for a total worldwide gross of $299.6 million, which is just like, what? And I just like, that's so crazy. That's just amazing that it's gotten like this much, because, you know, I mean, Blumhouse isn't, I mean, I remember it being a smaller studio or a production company, and they used to bring out like not the worst, but like they produced a lot of dumb movies over time. And I'm just glad that their quality has gotten better. They've won Academy Awards. You know, they got a hold of Michael Myers, and they gave us a pretty good, solid trilogy. They've worked with Jordan Peele and given us some pretty good films that way. I mean, a lot of the films that we've been seeing from them have been pretty good. Like, The Black Phone was really good. And then Megan, Happy Death Day, Insidious, Paranormal Activity. And then, I mean, they've even produced, like, drama films like Whiplash and Black Klansman, which Get Out and Black Klansman were both nominated for Best Picture, and when Get Out ended up winning the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. So, honestly, like, I know that they started off like making some dumb things. Like, I'm not a big fan of like the Purge. And they produced Sinister, which I'm not a huge fan of. Sinister, I love the beginning, but the ending's dumb. They did Truth or Dare, which I heard was not great. Ouija, they just have a lot that, at least in their early times, and maybe it looks like when I'm saying early, I'm thinking like earlier than this, but like the 2010s. But it looks like through the 2010s, they have. I mean, they do have great films, but there's just some that it's like, like Fantasy Island. I didn't think Fantasy Island was dumb. It's just, it was like unnecessary. I think the way they did it was like, but then they have like some pretty good ones, like The Invisible Man, because they do team up with Lee Wynell a lot to do like Insidious and to do, or they did like Halloween. They're able to do some other things too. But you know, I love that Blumhouse is just like, you know what, we know we make some ridiculous things sometimes, but we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep doing this. We know what we do. Thank you, Jason Blum, for being ridiculous a lot of the time. Kill Counter. Now we come to the part of the podcast where I rack up all the kills and deaths in the film. FNAF doesn't have many kills, but does it have the right amount? Let's get suited up and get into it. Prior to the events of the film, during the opening credits, we see William Afton taking 5 children and killing them by stuffing them each into an animatronic. Each child is seen in the film with an item or a piece of clothing corresponding to each animatronic. One has a hook like Foxy, another has bunny ears like Bonnie, a third has a top hat and yellow shirt like Golden Freddy. I'm pretty sure that's the one that's Golden Freddy. I may be confusing him with regular Freddy, but I'm not sure. I think I got it right. The fourth one is a girl in yellow, so that's got to be Chica. And lastly, we have a kid in a brown shirt, and I'm pretty sure that one's for Freddy, because I think that one corresponds to Freddy, and then because the other kid is wearing a top hat and like yellow, that's Golden Freddy. But I don't know if I'm mistaken. I normally don't like to include off-screen or implied deaths, but these deaths are important to the story. That's usually when I will include them. So the first kill in the film is a security guard Mike replaces. He has his face mutilated by a Fazbear robot head. I'm not sure which one, though. Next, we have 4 kills by the animatronics. Max, her brother Jeff, and his friends enlisted by Aunt Jane to vandalize the restaurant. Max waits outside while Jeff, Carl, and Hank break into the building. Carl is chased by Chica, but has his face bitten by Mr. Cupcake. Hank is killed by Bonnie, and Jeff is killed by Foxy. Max goes inside to investigate and is bitten in half by Freddy himself. The final kill is Aunt Jane. She's killed off screen, presumably by Golden Freddy. So with the kids killed prior to the film, the security guard before Mike, Max, and the Vandals, and Aunt Jane, there are a total of 11 kills and deaths. The film is definitely not a gore fest, nor did I think it would be. But I thought we might get a little more kills or something. I would really like to get like this on physical media, because the deleted or alternate scenes, I wonder if they're more gorier or something, or maybe there's something we didn't see. I feel like there's more to this movie that was on the editing floor that we're not seeing, but who knows. So let's move on to my final thoughts for the film. So I've never played FNAF myself. I've watched some Let's Plays, the theories on the lore. I've learned some stuff about the series from my nephews. I know there's a lot that was cut, changed, reworked, and added from different parts of the backstory and the lore. And the film isn't rated R, but overall I think it was a solid first film. It was what is definitely going to be a franchise with how much money it's made, with the audience and the Rotten Tomato scores not that great. I think they're still going to go forward with this franchise. It's going to be a franchise. You don't bring on Matthew Lillard to play William Afton and not bring him back, because he's just a great actor in general. The direction is pretty good. I think Emma Tammy does a great job. I'm glad that they got rid of Chris Columbus. I'm not saying Chris Columbus is a terrible director. I'm not a huge fan of Chris Columbus. I mean, there are some movies that I do like that he did, but there's some things like Harry Potter, that the first 2, that it's just like, you don't need to do that. I don't think you should have done that. But you know, especially since this is a video game film, like, right, a film based off a video game, for someone to come in, and, you know, those are not usually received well by critics or audiences, but I'm so glad that we're getting this kind of golden time of video game movies, because in the past, they've been dumb. The original Super Mario Bros., though it's a cult classic, and it's beloved because it's ridiculous, it is still a terrible movie. Just look at, like, Resident Evil, like, doesn't take anything from the original games, and fans don't like it. There's other ones I can get into, like the there's a lot of other ones. They're just, like, terrible. But I think really with, like, the latest Tomb Raider, I don't know if anyone saw that. I did. It was actually really good. I think with that and Sonic and Mario, and, you know, we've been getting some actually pretty good adaptations of video games. And for someone to come in, especially Emma Tammy, I don't know what else she's done or if she has, but to come in and, you know, give us something that's pretty good, you know. This is crazy. She got the shooting production done in 2 months. It started in, I think, February of this year and got done in April of this year. And was able to get some pretty good performances, too, out of the actors. Josh Hutcherson, he's pretty fine, a fine actor. I like him in The Hunger Games. He'll pop up in things here and there, and I think he does a really good job. Elizabeth Lyle I think she does fine. Piper Rubio, I think this is her first film. I'm glad she's not super intolerable like some child actors can be. She does have some annoying things where it's like, okay, come on. But I think it works towards, you know, like, she's not understanding that, like, her older brother is in charge of her now, but he's not got everything together. But I think even with his limited screen time, Matthew Lillard does a really good job as the villain, William Afton. And I mean, I love the little reference to Scream that they throw in there too, when he cleans off the knife, and you can just tell it's, oh yeah, that's Stu. It's Stu from Scream. Duh. But, like, yeah, he does a great job. I mean, he always does a great job. He was, if anyone out there has ever watched The Descendants, it was nominated for Best Picture a while back. He does a great job in that. He plays kind of like the antagonist to the film. Go watch it if you haven't ever seen it. It's a really good movie. But, you know, yes. So let's get into, like, the elephant in the room. Them not sticking to the lore, them not sticking to the actual game and the mechanics and how things are supposed to work, and them kind of bringing things in from other parts of the story and the lore, and them kind of adapting parts of, like, the second and the third and this story and that story. And yeah, it does kind of feel weird, especially when you know some of, like, the lore. When you know this is supposed to happen, that's supposed to happen, and you know how the game mechanics are supposed to work and how the animatronics are supposed to work. It does kind of seem like, oh, like, why are they so nice? Like, I get that they're nice to the little girl, right? Like, oh, okay, it's a little friend or whatever. But then all of a sudden they're just, like, nice to Mike and Elizabeth? Oh, no, Elizabeth is her name. I forgot what her name is. Oh, yeah, Vanessa. I'm sorry. Yeah, when they're both there with Abby and they're, like, interacting with them and stuff. I mean, I do like that we got some kills, but I do wish it would have been a little bit gorier. I wish it would have been rated R, especially for how, like, truly, like, disturbing the games are, and how much, like, messed up those games are, and, like, you get into, like what happened with, like, the Bite of 87, and, like, what William Afton did, and, like, where it goes from there. Yeah, there's things here and there that it's like, man, I really want to see that. But, I mean, I think we're going to get to see some of that in the other sequels. I think obviously Scott Cawthon had an idea for where it needs to go. He came and, scrapped certain things, put certain things into it, and I know he's taken a step back, especially because, I don't care if I get political. It's my podcast. He's kind of an idiot for being very MAGA and right wing, because he's Christian, whatever. Shut up. And so he kind of took a step back from everything to stay out of the spotlight to promote it or anything. Obviously, this is all going towards the money going towards him anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I think they have an idea of where it's going to go, taking certain things from like the books, taking things from the series, taking things from other media here and there. I think they have an idea of where it's going to go, especially with Jason Blum, who is, I hate to say it, but he's a pretty good producer. He wouldn't be investing in this if he didn't have a good feeling for, let's keep going. Like, this is the guy who's giving us a sequel to The Black Phone, and I feel like it could be pretty good. So I think they know where they're going. So, and then let me just touch on, I love that the animatronics. They got Jim Henson's Creature Shop to come in, make these animatronics, and so they had a tangible thing, and they still just blow my mind that those things are real. They're not just CGI, and that they're physically there. Like, I love it. I love that they did that they didn't try to do CGI, because CGI probably would have worked too. I mean, you could have done it so easily, because they look like early CGI, like early days of like animatronic looking CGI that just is like kind of unsettling, and that's why they're scary. And they could have easily just done that, but they didn't. And I give them applause for that. I give them some, cheers for that. Like, not many studios are willing to risk that. Like, hey, we gotta shoot this but they did have a while for pre-production, so things changed here and there, but I think that was probably the one thing that they were for sure set on, like, hey, you guys gotta get to work on making these look amazing, look accurate, let's get it done. And then they shot it, they got a pretty good performance out of them too. So overall, is it a great film? It's fine. It's a movie. It's a fine film. I don't think it's a great FNAF film. It's not. It's definitely not exactly what we've been waiting for Five Nights at Freddy's. But it's definitely a film that we got, and I want to see where it goes. I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm not saying it's bad. It is good. There's like certain interactions with characters that I want to see more. I want to see more of like him and Mike and Vanessa and Abby. I think they work really well together, and I want to see where things go now with William Afton, and how they're going to incorporate things from like Sister Location and things beyond that. So let's see how it goes. Maybe the next one's actually a pretty good, like a banger of a movie. Maybe they decide to like make it rated R and give us something a little bit more. Like maybe they're on the loose, going around killing people. I know that's more of a stray away from the games, but I think that's kind of where you go, because like you can't. If you kind of do like a first person point of view, point and click like movie, I don't know if it works necessarily, because it's just gonna be filled with jump scares constantly, and I don't know if that'll work that well. So I do give it a thumbs up. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. I think it's good. I think it's, if you want something for a good time to just watch, and like if you know like people who like know the lore, who know the lore, and people who don't know the lore, and sit them down and just have them, you have one half that's like fuming that things are bad and wrong, and like, wow, they couldn't even get Markiplier for this. And it's like, the other half is like, huh? Because I watched this with my mom, and my mom had no idea like any of that stuff, and she was just like, it was okay. Honestly, I think the better FNAF movie was Banana Splits. If anyone's ever seen Banana Splits, I gotta do a review of Banana Splits sometime because I love that. It's so ridiculous. I honestly think that's what they were going to do, kind of before they started reworking everything. Go watch Banana Splits. Honestly, it's ridiculous, and I think you'd like it. But yeah. Were you jump scared? Did not following the lore confuse you? Who was your favorite cameo? Was this about what you expected? That's probably where I stand. Thank you all for listening, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to every new episode and get every new episode downloaded. Do you have any strange, mysterious, or unexplained stories? Are they fact? Did you craft the story yourself? If you'd like us to read your stories, you can email them to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to read them on the podcast. We also like to post those stories on our socials, on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok at horrorboxpodcast, where we also have updates and news. One last thing, if you like the podcast and would like to support the podcast, buy me a coffee. You can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast. It'd really help out. We'll see you next time and hear what comes out of the horror box.